What's going on, guys? All right, so we get asked a lot of questions about how long will vinyl last? Will it ruin my paint? You know, is it harmful? Will it protect it? All kinds of things. So I'm going to start off with the basics here. If you don't take care of your wrap or your car or your paint, you're going to have issues with it regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter how good the paint is. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's a Ferrari, a Honda Civic, a Hyundai, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you don't take care of your car isn't going to look pretty. Now, that being said, there are some factors that come into play when it comes time to either install wrap or remove wrap. So when we're installing wrap, we tend to look at a vehicle. We want to look at a vehicle's paint, and you know, is the paint in reasonable condition? Is the clear coat flaking off? Is the paint faded? Are there a lot of stone chips? Any damage? That kind of stuff. So what happens is if there is clear coat flaking off of the paint or off of the car, wrapping a car is not a solution for that. All right. There is the possibility that you could probably wet sand that down to be smooth and then wrap over it. But if you try to wrap over with clear coat or paint flaking off of the vehicle, what's going to happen is the material is going to grab it, and sorry, it's going to fix my toque. Yes, we call it a toque here in Canada for those everyone else who's watching in the US. Anyways, just a small joke. So if we go to wrap a car that has flaking paint or clear coat, what happens is the vinyl will bond or grab that flaking paint or clear coat. And when you go to reposition it, or if you need to reposition it, what's going to happen? That's going to lift that little bit off, or a large piece, or however big that piece might be. It might be a micro piece, might be a piece the size of a quarter or a dime, or it could be a sheet like this big, who knows. But anyways, when you go to reposition and put it back down, it's not going to stick in that spot. And then on top of that, you're going to have a raised, your film is going to be raised slightly in that area. So we want to, my rule of thumb is that I don't like to wrap cars over a certain age. Now you can kind of say, like, look at the car, if it's 10 years old and it's been garage kept and there's very low miles on it and it looks great, sure, you could wrap it. You know, over time paint will fade, paint will thin, and under the sun, under washing it, all kinds of stuff, just regular wear and tear. So the more it's driven, the more it's outside, the thinner that paint and the clear coat's going to get. Sorry, most of the clear coat. I know in the southern states or in the south, anywhere where it's hot, where the UV strong, you can see corrosion on the roof, the hood, and the trunk on most cars that are like 3 or 4 years old, especially black ones. So, you know, with me being in Florida, I saw this all the time. If paint can't hold up, then how is vinyl going to hold up? That's my question, right? So the thing is that no, the pigment in the film will be drawn out by the UV light. So depending on UV exposure, there will be fade, especially on your horizontal surfaces, your hood, your roof, and your trunk. Now, Avery and 3M have come up with more of a zoning as far as warranty goes. So it makes, I don't know if Avery, I think it's just 3M. So I think a lot of manufacturers are basing their warranty now off of the zones. So it really depends on how high the UV exposure is and how often or how long the duration of UV exposure is in your state or in your zone. Now, if chrome, let's say, is normally 3 years, and for your horizontal surfaces, and you live in a zone that's going to be only 30% of that, you're looking at a year or less. So think about that for a moment. If you get a year out of your chrome wrap, then that's pretty good. If you live in a hot place where there's a lot of UV exposure. Up here in Canada, I got people here with chrome wraps for 2-3 years. There's not even a single ounce of fade. So it really just depends. Also, you can get it up here depending on how often your car's kept outside in the sun and stuff like that. So, you know, just really depends. When it comes to wrapping a vehicle, I don't typically take vehicles older than 6 or 7 years for the most part. It's just a general rule of thumb. Like I said, again, you can assess the situation and you can see if that is something that you want to take on, and if it's a well-kept vehicle, or if it's something that needs work. And if it's work that needs to be done before you wrap it, then be honest with the customer. Don't tell them you're going to you're going to transform their vehicle and it's going to be perfect. There's always imperfections in paint. There's always imperfections in original manufacturer paint. Now, I mean, I've shown this in other videos, a brand new Mustang. This thing has imperfections on it. I could show you on this. I always, if I notice imperfections in the paint, I document it. I take pictures. I make sure that I protect myself. I cover my butt to make sure that if the customer ever sees anything afterwards, we can show them on video that this is what was in the paint. There's nothing you can do about that. Unless you want me to sand it down a little bit, which you don't want to sand down this car. It's brand new. So if there is a small imperfection in the paint due to the manufacturer, we just leave it. No car is perfect. I have a little waiver, and this is what I tend to give out in my workshops, but just for reference, it's a little waiver saying that states the condition of paint and removal and things like that to not really hold you accountable when it comes to doing wraps. So, you know, older factory paint jobs, aftermarket paint jobs, or factory paint jobs with defects could be damaged by the installation or removal of vehicle lettering, graphics, or color change films, all right? Nothing's perfect. I've seen great brands remove wrap on front bumpers on brand new Audis and stuff, you know, like, well, I'll just say it. I saw 3M like a month and a half ago remove the paint on an Audi A7's front bumper. Brand new car. It's like less than a year old. Was it due to the installer's removal? No, it was just due to the lack of the manufacturer putting in a sufficient amount of paint in that area. Also, 3M is a bit more aggressive when it comes to its adhesive. So there is a chance that if you're not going slow enough, that it could lift the paint. On top of that, what happens is that if that car gets into a small fender bender, let's say it just bumps a wall lightly or bumps a pole lightly, you might not see any damage on the film, you might not see any damage on the bumper, but what happens underneath on the paint is that we get micro cracks, and that is probably the problem, okay? So if you get micro cracks underneath the paint that you can't even actually see, if you look at some people's front bumpers, you can see really fine lines in them. It just means they bumped something really lightly that put pressure on the paint and cracked it, probably in a colder temperature. A lot more likely in colder states or colder places for that to happen. I know that if you heat paints and it's warm, it tends to flex pretty well. But again, you can kind of tell if you look close enough if there's any micro cracks. Now, if there's damage like there is on this Dodge that I'm looking at right here, that's clearly that paint probably can come up, and wrapping over scratches is not a solution. If we go to remove that film later on, it's going to most likely lift the paint, simply because that little accident has caused the paint to break free from the surface. All you're doing is creating little bits that aren't now connected to the surface. That little bit of flex will do it. A door, a hood, a fender. On top of that, what happens is so for example, my car, I got a brand new Hyundai Genesis. I picked the car up, it was leaking brake fluid. I was like, what does this smell? I thought it was coolant at first, but it wasn't quite right. Luckily, I'm kind of mechanically inclined, so I do know a bit about cars. Anyways, I checked it, I found that it was leaking brake fluid from the master cylinder, and I was like, okay, so my car's leaking brake fluid. That means that most likely on the transport truck, where they stack cars above each other, my car was probably leaking brake fluid on the car below it, if it happened to be above a car. So I got one car. How many cars go out every day or every year? That's just one. So if that happens to a vehicle, do you think that the manufacturer is going to tell you, or the ownership's going to, the dealership's going to tell you that your hood has been repainted or your roof has been repainted? No. They're not gonna, the car hasn't been in an actual accident. They're not going to tell you anything. They're going to sell you the car as brand new, and you're going to go on, and that's it. It's going to be a paint job that's not from the factory anymore, and there's nothing you can do about it. Another way to tell if a panel has been repainted is if there's primer underneath. Now, if there's primer underneath the paint, when you go to remove the wrap and the paint lifts, if there's primer there, that's been repainted. You should not be responsible for the quality of that paint job if the vinyl takes it off. A good OEM paint job, the vinyl will never lift, all right? You don't really run into that with high-end cars very often, especially like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and stuff like that. Those cars are put together very well. So on the higher-end car side, they're pretty safe. But as soon as you kind of get into a mid-range luxury car around there, like 60 to 80, 100K, it can be a hit or miss. You never know. BMW's pumping out cars like crazy, Audi's pumping out cars like crazy, and so is Mercedes. They're not really taking that much time to paint in and around all the edges. And like I said, you never know if something's been repainted. So anyways, just wanted to touch on that. Now, graphics, this is how I state it. Graphics and color change films will be installed or removed with utmost care and utilization of years of experience. We're not just ripping the film off. We're taking it off in a way that makes sense, in a way that works, in a way that doesn't cause too much force on the paint. All right, my job in the end is to give you a wrap and make sure that wrap lasts, and we can resort back to that original finish. Because otherwise, why are you wrapping your car? If you can't resort back to the original finish, then there's really not much of a point. It's a lot of paint protection. It's getting a color that you want. If you want to leave it on for the car's entire life, cool. Like, you might have that car for 6, 7 years. That wrap could easily last 6 or 7 years. There's wraps out there 7, 8 years. Just depends on how you take care of it. It can last you a lifetime. So I'll say, for example, CK Wraps, it cannot be responsible for any damage. Sorry if I'm hitting the microphone. Cannot be responsible for any damage to a customer's paint job during installation or removal of vehicle graphics or color change film due to underlying issues with the surface of the vehicle. Now, that's a little vague, but it is still very specific. We don't actually know if there are underlying issues until that paint comes up and then we see primer underneath. Manufacturers don't spray a car with primer. That's pretty much through and through. There might be the odd one here or there, but you're not really going to run into that. And that's the way to tell in the end. Assess your car, walk around with it, make sure it's good before you do a wrap, and have something for someone to sign off on. By signing below, I acknowledge that your business name has made me aware of the possibility of damage to my vehicle by installation or removing graphics or color change films on my vehicle, and I will not hold your company name or your name liable for any damage to my vehicle which may be a result of the above mentioned. Done. Print, sign, done. Get that? You're safe, you're good to go. You want to work on trust? That might last for a while, but it might not last very long. All it takes is one person to come in, sue the pants off you, and you're in trouble. Now, I wanted to give you guys this, and I wanted to talk about wraps and how they can affect the paint and how they can protect the paint and how long they can last. I hope this was the information that you're looking for. There isn't a lot of information out there about it, so, and it's a question that I'm asked all the time. Not only that, I'm sure Avery, 3M does touch on it a little bit on their website, but it's really vague. It's really small. It's a very small paragraph. I don't even think I've seen anything on Avery's website about the durability and how long it's going to last, and actually an actual discussion or talk about it, and why there can be variable factors. Vivids gets asked all the time, and they gave me the idea to do this video, and I was like, you know what, I should do this video because you guys need to know. It's not foolproof, and your car isn't foolproof. So just like I might make a mistake with a door handle and it might pull back a little bit out of 1 out of 4, all right, I'll accept it, I'll fix it. Will the manufacturer fix your paint? Probably not, and they won't take ownership for that. It's very hard to get warranty, we all know that. As far as taking your car in for any kind of warranty, it's always a pain. But nothing's perfect, guys. The higher end car you get into, yes, of course, the quality is going to be a little bit better. You get what you pay for. Same thing with the wrap, you get what you pay for. Don't go out there and try and save a couple $100 to have someone else remove it who didn't even install it. They're not going to know what that installer did. Take it back to the shop that installed your wrap, or always talk to your customers, including the price as far as installation and removal. Say, hey, I'll remove your wrap. I want to be the one to do it. You don't want to put that liability on someone else's head either. and you know how you went about doing that wrap. Cover your butt, guys. Make sure you're safe and knowledgeable in what you're doing, and the more information you can give your customer, the less you're hiding, the more confidence they're gonna have in you. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you wanna see more videos, I'm gonna talk about the workshops, level 2 and level 3 in just a moment. They'll probably follow this shortly. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.